Okay, so how's it going, guys? This is Real Murata photographer based in Tokyo. So Lomochrome 92, if you recall my Lomochrome 92 video, which I basically shot around Tokyo Tower, I basically shot it with my Mamiya 645 a couple years back. Lomography, if you guys do not know, have this series of film stocks called the Lomochrome series, which emphasize on specific color spectrums. We have the turquoise, purple, metropolis, which I already made a video on. And Lomochrome 92 actually came out after that. However, I think back in 2023, if I'm right, they released sort of like a variant to the Lomochrome 92, which is called the Sun-Kissed. And ever since it came out, I knew about it, but I never had the opportunity to shoot with this film stock. So I thought, why not dedicate one video on this topic, because I think lomography people are actually watching some of my videos. So sort of like a heads up to also my viewers who are interested in this film stock. And I will had a little bit of a high expectation on this film stock, because if you recall my Lomochrome 92 video, which I shot around Tokyo Tower, it had this sort of like cyanish, coldish tonality, which kind of had a similar vibe to shooting Cinestill 800T during the day. But on the other hand, the Sun-Kissed variety has this, if I'm right, this orangish, brownish tone, which it will suit the sort of like hot summer days of Tokyo. So I thought, why not like shoot it with my Mamiya 645. And for location wise, instead of like shooting around in the urban area, there was an area that I really wanted to photograph, which was Tama Lake. And this is another lake located within Tokyo, and I actually did not know about it until I started researching about lakes around in Tokyo. I went to Tama, which is like really far away, but worth it. But Tama Lake is actually located around the Seibu line, and if you guys do not know, Seibu line is sort of like a train line that stretches from Shinjuku, Ikebukuro, all the way to the west, northwestern area, and also north. It goes all the way to Kawagoe, which is a really touristy area. But instead of going there, I basically went to Tamako Lake, basically photographed using this Lomography Lomochrome 92 Sun-Kissed with my Mamiya 645, and it's roughly a 30-minute train ride from Shinjuku, so it's not really far away, but it's sort of like in the countryside. So I thought it kind of matches my style of photographing in isolated locations, so I basically brought it there to photograph. To be honest with you guys, because it was like 37 degrees or 38 degrees Celsius, 70% humidity, normally you guys probably who have experienced being in Southeast Asia and also in Japan during the summer season is really brutal. So I didn't walk around the lake itself. It's roughly, if I'm right, 10 kilometers or so. But if the season was more pleasant, like 20 degrees, I could have walked around like 10 kilometers to see if there was anything interesting. But during this day, I basically walked towards the end of the sort of like the bridge and back, and basically just shot sort of like a sample images for you guys. And I have to admit that if you're ever visiting, it's like really nice to sort of like walk around. It's more like a cycling type of area. So from what I expect, it was more like lots of trees kind of type in terms of like area wise. So I mean, I might revisit during the more peaceful season to see if there's like ever anything interesting around that area. And after getting my sort of like film negatives back from the lab and just viewing the images, one area to note is that this is said among various Lomochrome series, and it's like really easy to identify, is that the color negatives itself, normally it's like red, orange, you know, the outer like color. But the Lomochrome series, on the other hand, especially the sun-kissed version, has this, I'll stick in a BTS, it looks on the yellowish type of color spectrum in terms of what I see. And this is kind of similar to Metropolis. And I have to like find that Metropolis film negatives. If I have it, I'll stick in sort of like a comparison if I can find it. But this film stock actually shares a little bit of a characteristics to the Metropolis film stocks that I shot in the past, although I shot in 35mm format. And if you ever shot with Metropolis, Lomochrome Metropolis, that film stock is by far the more desaturated, bleach bypassed-ish look with lots of contrast to it. This, on the other hand, shares a little bit of commonalities with the Metropolis film stock, because when you look at the shadow details, especially the what you call the forestry or the trees in the sort of like a background, actually when I shot sort of like a bridge, because it was sort of like backlit, the sort of like the trees were already sort of like in the sort of like crush zone already, although I actually sort of like exposed it correctly. And you have to be sort of like careful with this film stock, and especially this film stock and also Metropolis, is that it's easy to sort of like get it in this crushed sort of like the shadow details will remain like pitch black and can't retrieve it kind of. So you have to be careful with that when sort of like photographing sort of like a landscape shot, like what is the EV exposure of the sky and also the EV exposure of the sort of like the trees. And because the exposure latitude isn't that great for this film stock, you have to be careful in that regards. I consider myself a professional in terms of scanning film negatives, but out of all those Lomochrome series that I've shot in the past, Lomochrome Metropolis, Purple, Turquoise, and this 92, and also the 92 Sunkiss, I have to admit probably the 92 version of the Sunkiss is the most forgiving film stock for people who are starting out within this realm of Lomochrome series made by Lomography, due to the fact that it's not too overemphasizing in a sense, and also the color, because it's on the sort of like orange brownish type of tonality, it's kind of easier to sort of like edit these files compared to other film stocks such as the purple, turquoise, and I guess red scale, because those specific colors are more overemphasized in a sense. So if you're ever starting out and shooting in medium format or maybe 35 within this Lomochrome series, I would highly suggest shooting with the 92 Sunkiss version over the 92 original, which has a more colder tonality, which the cyan is more overemphasized in a sense. However, this sort of like 92 Sunkiss, on the other hand, because it's more towards the brown and orange-ish tones, I guess it's kind of easier in a sense to sort of like edit them in post. You can basically desaturate it or add more color to it. So in a sense, in my mind, this film stock was actually easier to sort of like edit. And for people who are starting out, I think this is a great area to start out with, especially shooting or photographing during the summer season when it's like really hot and you want to sort of like emphasize that really nice like warm vibe. I would highly suggest photographing with the Sunkiss 92. And along with that, I realized after looking at Lomography's website, I haven't tried the purples variant, which is called the petulant, if I'm right. So if I have time, I will try to photograph that for you guys in my future videos to come. I have to like allocate some time on that video. So yeah, that's basically it on my rundown on talking about Lomography's alternative film stock, the Color 92 Sunkissed. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and at the same time I would love to hear how you guys like edit lomography film stocks, especially the Lomochrome series. If you have any advices, and I am really welcome to see them in the area below. So yeah, we will see you next time. Peace out.